And we are live. Hello, everybody. Hello, Kathy. Good morning, Jennifer. Lovely to see you. And of course, Dr. Mary Marshall. I hope it's not too hot out there. It's lovely to see everybody. And so good of you to join me in this unusual time for me. It's very early out here in California. It is one of these rare warm days. I think it's to be about over 70 degrees today, Fahrenheit. And what is that? Something over 20 centigrade. Pretty exciting stuff. I'm still in a sweater because, it's still cold. It's delightful to see you. My very special guest today is none other than Emma Cox of Journeys into Genealogy podcast. And of course, my guest each month for Emma Explores. And Emma is going to give us a sneak peek into what's coming next week. Go ahead, please, Emma.
Thank you, Barbara. Lovely to be here with you. And most people might be able to see me here. We've got a lovely sunny day here in England as well. So it's summer and we're very pleased to see it. So my topic this week, I've chosen wills because I think it's something that a lot of people are really interested in. And basically, you never really know what you're going to discover when you look at a will. So it could be that they're a happy family relationship. It could be that there are people who don't get on with each other. There might be somebody who's favored a little bit more than somebody else, or there might be somebody who's left out, or there might be somebody's wishes where they say they don't want you to spend any money and they don't want you to actually mourn for them. So there's all sorts of things can come out of will, apart from money and property and what people value really, because sometimes people itemize certain items and say, I want this to go to a particular person, or wills can be a treasure trove of information.
It can also tell you what their values are and the donations that they want to make to things that the rest of the family may or may not agree with, I would imagine.
Yeah, charities and that sort of thing as well. And the thing to remember about a will is it's what somebody's wishes are. And it is normally made before they die. Sometimes wills can be afterwards if they find something where it hasn't been done formally. And somebody can actually attest that this was the actual person, and it is a genuine will. So sometimes that can be brought in. You can actually have quite a gap between the will being written and somebody dying. It can be years and years. And some of the executors might have died in there. Some of the children or the people who are inheriting money might have died in the interim. So you never quite know what's going to happen with all of that.
And that's all sorted out in the probate, right?
That's right, yes. So once somebody's actually died, then you can find out what happened to their money, their estate, all the things that they had there. Sometimes things are named, sometimes they're not. You can find out if what they chose as their values, if they chose to invest in certain things. It's like, I know that some of mine said, oh, railway stocks are a good idea. Do invest in this, but don't invest in anything that's not a public limited company or something like that. So don't take too many risks with the money when you're doing things. So lots and lots of guidance for people there.
It's like your granduncle still giving you financial advice from the grave.
But we're really fortunate in this country because a will can be obtained it's a £1.50, which I think is an absolute bargain. And you basically ask for it from the probate office, and sometimes they'll come back to you and say, oh no, there isn't a will, there's only administration. But other times they'll say, yes, you can have it, but you have to be really precise about putting things in and get the dates right and things. I've done that once or twice, where I've got the probate and the date of death the wrong way around and they can't find it, and then they still charge you. But occasionally it doesn't really matter if that happens.
Yeah. So I guess every administrative level will be different. So I believe here in California, it's on a county basis. Is that tend to be right? City, county kind of thing?
There's central. All wills are centralized here.
In the county?
No, centralized.
In the UK?
Whole of the country. The whole of England and Wales.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. So basically you go to one place. Well, you actually go to two places. If it's before a certain date, which I think is 1858, the National Archives has copies of some of them. But after that is the probate office, and you just go to
that was that whole.
and you look.
Yeah. So you had a whole big scandal in Britain about preserving wills. Is that right?
We did.
Tell
Yeah,
us
so a
about
couple
that.
of years ago, the probate office, they have the original wills and they have to store them off site. And obviously that can become quite cumbersome in terms of storage space and money and things over the
Paper.
years. So they decided that people didn't like the originals and that things were being digitized, everything would be online. It would be fine if we didn't keep any of the originals or any of the important originals. And they didn't actually say who the important original wills would be or anything like that. And you can't tell when somebody dies whether or not they're going to be important. It might be 100 years later that you find out that they're important. So you can't
Right.
just destroy them. So somebody started a campaign and it got hundreds of thousands of signatures. And they basically sent it off to this government department that was proposing to actually stop saving all these wills. And fortunately for all of us, they decided to back down on that.
Hmm.
This may mean that at some point they charge more for an individual will, but if they're £1.50 for the moment, if they put that up to £2, £3 even, I still think that's very good value for what you get.
Oh, yeah. And those things obviously haven't gone up with inflation or anything else, which is
No,
ludicrous. So yeah, no, that sounds like the kinds of people that were saying, yeah, just digitize all of your pictures and throw the originals away. Don't worry, Kathy. I see you. Yeah, it's frightening, and you get these sorts of patterns around. Now, tell us about some of the kinds of wills that you've seen in your own family, because that's what we do in Emma
oh,
Explores, is dive into Emma's family. But the best part is you always take the time to then explain how you found these remarkable things. Hello, Bill. Welcome, Elaine. Thank you so much for joining. Go ahead.
no. I have a two times great grandfather. His name was Oswald James Catley. And he was basically all sorts of things. He worked out in Russia, in St. Petersburg, as a mining manager and that sort of thing. I can't remember if he was born out there. Certainly his wife was born out there, and my great grandmother, their daughter, was born out there. And they ended up coming back to England after a while. And one of his sons went out to America. So he went to a place called Ogdensburg, which is on the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is in northern New York State. And I believe
Hmm.
he was a dentist. I found out at some point. And so Oswald unfortunately died when he was out there. He wasn't particularly old. I think he might have been in his 60s. And I got his will this morning. So this is
Ooh.
very recent. So with this lovely system that we have, you put in requests. Sometimes they happen quickly. Sometimes if it's a recent will, they almost happen instantaneously. Literally, you can put the request in and get it within 5 minutes. Others,
Did he
it can
die in
take 2 days.
America and you have the will here?
Yeah.
So how oh, that's a great question. How does it uh who owns the will when is it based on where they were born, if they were a UK citizen, the will be in the UK?
He was a UK citizen. He was just visiting his son. He
I
was there
see.
on holiday, so he wasn't there to work or anything like that.
Yeah.
So his will was in England, and there are different wills in England and Scotland. And sometimes you will find wills that are repeated in both.
Uh-huh.
So they will actually. It might be that people have land in both, or some
Right.
reason for actually having a will
Right.
in Scotland as well. So you might get it from the Scottish Probate Office as well as the English one. But so
Mhm.
Oswald dies out there, and he died in 1923, so just over 100 years ago. And he had, I think, about 8 children in total. And they were all fairly healthy. They all lived adult lives and things like that. Most of them had children. And my great grandmother was one of the youngest. And I've got a lovely photograph of them all dressed in white clothes and sort of, from about 1904 or 1907, something like that. And he basically says in his will, it's all typed with this one. So wills can be handwritten or they can be typed. So you never
Right.
quite know what you're going to get. But this is all typed out. So in theory, it's easy to read. However, there's no punctuation, literally, no full stop, nothing, no full stops, no paragraphs, nothing like that. So when you're reading through, you read. Oh, that's the end of a sentence. Stop. Okay, so that's that sentence. So you sometimes have to read things more than once because you might think that the following words are part of a sentence or not. So you have to try and work it out. So basically, he said that at the beginning, it's like, I don't want anybody to mourn for me. And basically, I want to be buried as cheaply as possible. So people don't waste their money on a burial. And then he goes through and he's got several daughters. I think he had 4 or 5 daughters and 3 sons, if I remember correctly. And so he says, and he doesn't divide it evenly. So one gets 22%, another one gets 7, another gets 6. and they all get different percentages of it. And his will was actually quite small, so it was something like £1,500, which wasn't a great estate in those days. And the last one was Bernard, and he said at the end of it, unfortunately, Bernard, I can't leave you any money, and I'm leaving you to God's mercy. And it's just like, okay, I wasn't expecting that when I was reading his will.
Wow. Yeah.
And Bernard actually only lasted, he lived about another 4 years after Oswald. So
Heartbroken, no doubt. Yeah, people can be, well, so yeah, poor Bernard. I think people can be so cruel, even from the grave, in ways to pick fights among siblings, among family members over nothing, and usually isn't really about the money. It's about, did you love me enough? Wow,
and I've got
wow,
another one. So here's Henry Bennett Edwards, another my great grandfather. And so he and Ada Rosalind Cox was my great grandmother. They lived in this big house north of London, and she had a lot more money than him. Her father was very, very wealthy, and he left her loads of money. But he got money himself from various different family members. He wasn't a pauper by any means, but not in the same league. And from what I understand, she might have been quite a difficult old lady because my great aunt remembers going to see her grandmother, so you can see within sort of living memory that she was a little old lady crippled by arthritis living in this big house north of London. And the great grandfather wasn't living with her. So he was in a cottage nearby with somebody else who was a family member, but she was a family member on his wife's side. So she was his wife's father's cousin, if I remember rightly. Also, I can't remember. The relationship is slightly odd. It's not on his side of the family, but she ends up being a housekeeper to him. And he left his little estate to her. No mention of his children, nothing. So he obviously thought that his wife would be sorting her out. I'm waiting for her will. That one hasn't arrived yet. So that's going to be interesting to actually see what happens there. But I was trying to work out, okay, why would they do it? And then on the census, she is acting as his housekeeper. She's about 20 years younger than him. And
the
I've
wife,
got lots of photographs of her. The person who inherited the money from his will, his
right,
housekeeper,
right.
her name was Madeline Kemp, and I've got pictures of her with the wife's cousin children. So she looked after their children when she was younger, and she was actually the wife's cousin's cousin. I think I remember sort of slightly strange relationship. But the way that it's like, well, he didn't leave anything to his family and he left it to her. And it's like, well, was there a relationship between them? Um, who knows?
Jude Rhodes pops in to suggest, I wonder if a property transaction had taken place before the will. Yeah. Hmm. Wow, curious. Again,
And
is
that
it
will was
just
really
spite
short.
or is there really a relationship? Yeah, very
That one
strange.
was quite short. It literally said about 5 or 6 lines. I leave everything to her. Like, okay, yep, it was all one
Okay,
page.
if you want to get in there and vote, Kathy and Jude are voting for there was a relationship.
Well, that was my first suspicion. Was it's like, why would he leave everything to her? But I looked for her will, and I can't find that she left anything. And I think that probably she died quite a few years later. That there probably wasn't a great deal to actually be left, and she may not have actually made a will herself.
So there are rules, I assume, relating to at what point a Bill now says, "Oh yeah, without a doubt." um, are there rules relating to how much money it requires probate, goes into intestate, those kinds of things? If a will is not found, I think no, it's just
So
any amount.
basically, if you don't have a will, it's called intestate. So
Right.
you die without a will. So there's nothing. And if you're intestate, your people who have to administer your estate can be granted administration rights over it. So and then they know they can dispose of whatever you have. So that can
Wherever,
be
however
any
they want.
value. It doesn't matter. You can have
Yeah.
virtually nothing. You can have £1 million+ You can still die
Oh,
intestate, and that is still the case today. And a lot of
yeah.
people don't have wills, even
Yeah.
even in modern times. To do probate can be from a very small amount. You find wills where somebody's left £50 or something like that, But it might be that they have specific wishes that they want people to actually take
Care
note
for
of. It could,
animals or yeah,
yeah, or it could be that they have they just want a certain person to inherit something, or they want
yeah,
something to happen. So they actually
yeah,
take the time to do that.
yeah,
And if you go further back in history, it's mainly men have wills. Some women do if they're widows, because women's um, property became their husband's property for a long period of time. And it was prior to that, women could inherit stuff if they were their father's um,
right.
heirs and things like that. Sort of,
It's
we're talking a
not their
long time
mother's
ago.
heir. Yeah, yeah,
But so the majority of wills tend to be male, but the variety is amazing when you start looking through it, and they can be really simple from half a page, a page. One of my great grandfathers is 16 pages, and some of it is very repetitious. And they say the daughter of so and so, the aforementioned so and so, and they're quite formulaic. And if you're fortunate, you can read them. Sometimes it can be really quite difficult. So I've got three siblings, two brothers and a sister. So the sister's got quite a straightforward will. She has no children. She leaves her stuff to her nieces and nephews, the children of her brothers. The youngest brother outlives his siblings by quite a long period of time. And his will's fairly straightforward as well. He mentions all his children, etc., etc. The first person's will is handwritten, and it's in that sort of handwritten script that looks the same. You know, it's all
mhm,
roughly the same height and sort of trying to do, you're going through it and I can read a word or two here or there, and I can't read the rest of that. Okay, that needs a lot of effort to actually look at
yeah,
it and interpret it and then
yeah,
work out what it is. So that's on the list to do.
yeah. Now, do you have, after all of this experience in looking at so many different kinds of wills, do you have a parsing technique? Do you have a table that you build out of who are the people named, what is it they get, or some standard way of going about this?
What I start off doing is if I'm transcribing something myself or if I've got a document myself, I will go through and I will pick out people's names. I'll pick out places, dates, specific things that are of interest, and I'll put them in bold. So I'll create my own version of it, and I'll make sure that names stand out. If it's related to property and places, things, I will change the date so that rather than being the 5th day of November 1912, it's 5 November 12, just to make it easier to read. And rather than being £5,000 or £1,500, I will make it a small thing because again, that makes it stand out. And so if I'll go through the will and I'll do all of that when I'm doing the transcription. Sometimes I'll put together a summary. It just depends what I'm doing. And then I will get a sense there of what has actually happened with that will. And I was doing a little bit of preparation for the talk on Thursday. And I don't know if you can, I'll just put that up there, if you can see that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
started doing a little
Yeah.
piece of paper with who got what and which direction things went into,
Yeah,
with the
that's right,
idea of
because
actually,
yeah, because a tree makes so much sense to be able
yeah,
to parse through what it is, but then the gets, are really important. Yeah, you're getting some hearts there. That's makes some sense. And then, pulling that into more and more detail as you
yeah.
understand it.
And I think the thing is, it's like you a person who knows your family best rather than anybody else. So any transcriptions that other people have done, it's always a good idea to read through those and think, well, are these correct with what you know? Because sometimes people don't get the names correct or they can't read them. And
Yeah,
when you're reading documents, you know what that should be because you know the correct spelling of that name or whatever it is
yeah,
or whoever the
yeah,
person is. And so it's pulling all of that information in together. And then it's taking another look at the will and saying, well, what is this will actually telling me?
right.
What's how much money has this person got? Where has it gone to? Is there anything unusual or controversial or anything that's interesting? What does it tell me about the family? Because and often it'll tell you the person's names. It will give you people's full names. So if they've got middle names as well, that can be really helpful. It'll say when you get your executors, it sometimes even gives you their addresses. And if they're
Oh,
family members, then you can start tracing people using those. So there's all sorts of
yeah.
information contained within it.
Wow. So we have a comment from Dr. Mary Marshall saying, isn't the trend today to give what you want to others to have before death to avoid court fees and family debate about who gets what? I think that varies a lot. Jude chimes in that yes, in the UK, this is a very gray area. There's kind of a 7-year rule before death. Um, the first comment, I think a lot of Mary's comment relates to U.S. rules to things like taxes or at what point probate kicks in. In other words, you have to go through a formal court process if you leave more than, I'm going to say, $100,000 in cash or something like that, some basic value. In order to sort through those rules, at least from what I've had to go through. And yes, I certainly have seen a lot of times where elderly people will make the effort to try to be able to look people in the eye to say, I want you to have this, instead of allowing the faceless court system to handle it. What is this 7-year rule before death? Do you know what Ruth's referencing?
Yes. So basically, in this country, you can choose who you want to leave things to in your will. It's completely up to you. And you can give gifts to people before then. And if you live for 7 years after that gift, then that gift doesn't form part of your will. It means that the person's got it free, they don't pay any taxes on it, that's happened. But you have to live
Ah,
for 7 years. So that's when she says 7 year rule. So it's like if you give somebody a gift and you die within 2 years, that gift is seen as being part of their estate.
ah. Here we
So, and you
have,
can't
uh
do it for tax rules. So people are doing it for
right,
tax rules and saying, okay, I want to minimize the value of my estate and I will give away as much as possible. But then
right.
I've got to live for 7 years afterwards.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, we don't have that, but we do have rules on how much you can give to family members per year. And then there is some very high number at a maximum, something like that.
You can
That
do the same in this country. You can give us, so
yeah,
I don't exactly know what it is, a certain amount per year. But the thing is,
right.
it's like you have to live for the 7 years after that. And you were talking about probate. Everybody's subject to probate. If you have a will, it has to go through probate before you can then actually get access to the money, unless there's a very good reason for wanting to
Wow.
do that. And the probate service in this country is struggling. So modern wills can take months, even a year, for somebody to get probate.
That's crazy.
It is.
Again, our system is not, unless somebody, I'm missing something. To my understanding, it is completely on a county basis. So the state of California, for example, which is the largest state in the country, a population of about nearly 40 million people, about the size of Canada or Australia. And we have 50 something counties. And some are very small. I'm in a very large county here in the Bay Area, one of like 9 counties in the Bay Area. So it gives you some sense of the distribution, much, much more distributed as a problem. But gosh, I haven't even begun to chase the probate records for my ancestors. And it will be where they lived, not necessarily where they died. Is that what you're saying? Ah,
Well, here it's just a central probate office for
right.
England and
Oh,
Wales. So that's it. If you had property in this country, you basically have a will here, and then
right.
you're subject to the probate office here.
So this is the part where I get to say, you see, I'm really not even pretending to be a genealogist because I don't know obvious things like this. But I'm sure my American friends here that are chiming in and Canadian friends, Australia, New Zealand, although they should be asleep by now, um, should will know that kind of thing. And I hope you'll study up ahead of our talk on Thursday because this is fascinating. Nobody else peels into these stories, and you always come in with your suitcases full of great stories from your own family that will take us, I suppose, differences between England and Scotland, where I know you also have ancestors as well. You see, David, thank you. Thank you. Generally in the county where they died. That's fascinating. So there we go. See, everybody's chiming in now. That's where we all are. Good morning, Lisa. Lovely to
And
see
then
you.
you're talking about Scotland. People
Yeah.
in Scotland, you can get copies of wills, so you pay for them via Scotland's people. So that's the same website that you can go to get birth,
For
marriage, and death
maps.
records, some census
Right,
records, and things like that. And you can go and have a look for wills on there and buy copies of them on there.
right. So Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland all have separate by they're separate centralized
It,
systems.
England and Wales, and I believe Northern Ireland is part of the same thing. Scotland is separate.
I see. I see. Okay. Well, I think uh we're going to learn a lot, not only about your family, but tips and techniques for going through this. These are fascinating, and it's also a reminder for all of us in whatever your jurisdiction to be paying attention to your own family and the workflow for those kinds of things. Because I think the fundamental rule, hello, Paul, welcome. I think the fundamental rule here is that if things are a mess and relationships are a mess, then after death, they're even a bigger mess, right? Yeah. So
Definitely.
it it's and now you have created a nest for all future genealogists to go diving in to say, wait a minute, you didn't really like those persons, did you? Look what you've done. Hey there. So I hope you all can join us for next week, Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. in Britain. And we're going to again tell our good friends in Asia Pacific to get some sleep because we know you, Jennifer. You're going to be here. She told me she was not going to even attempt 2 hours earlier at 1 a.m. But we are going to be finding a way to make this work. Kathy Stones chimes in to say wills in Canada are prorated in the province or territory where the descendant lived at the time of death. So, yes, this seems to be a consistent pattern. I think it gets very tricky here if we're going to be, sorting out the wills on a county by county basis because, that could be 10 feet difference. Know where your hospital is.
But when you're looking for the essential records for your family, so everyone considers birth, marriage, and death, and probably census if you can find them. But your will, if you can find the will, it just helps give you more color in some ways. It just helps you work out, well, when they died, you find the actual date of death in there. You can find out things about their family, their children, all sorts of different things. And it's just another piece in the jigsaw, but I think it is an essential piece in the jigsaw. So it's always worthwhile looking to see if they exist. Even if you don't end up buying them at the time, it's like worthwhile saying, right, okay, when I get around to it, when I've got some time to do it, or even buy them and have them sitting there. I've got a little collection of wills that I've got. And to be quite frank, some of the writing in them is odd. So I put them to one side for the moment and just thinking when I've got some time, I will sit and actually try and go through them, or I'll pay somebody to do it. I don't do all of my own ones. It depends what they are. If they're particularly difficult, I've got a good friend that I will go to and actually say, could you do this for me? And she says, yes. And she charges me for it, which is fine. But that's what I expect.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. David asks a very good question. How far back in time do probate records go in Britain?
So the probate office itself starts in about 1858. So you should be able to find wills beyond that there. If you're looking for wills earlier than that, they don't really have probate. So you won't get an amount at the end of them. With probate, it will tell you what the value and things like that. But prior to that date, a lot of them are with the National Archives at Kew. So using the online discovery system, you can have a look and see if things are there. You may also find them at other archives as well. So I found a copy of my great grandfather's at the what was called the London Metropolitan Archives. I believe it's called the London Archives now. You may well also find them in local archives, so Somerset and different things like that. Depends if they had property and there was something that needed to be resolved locally, then there might well
Hmm.
be a copy of their will there. You could think about estate records. If somebody was part of an estate that had large uh, somebody part of the aristocracy in this country or something like that, gentry, their wills may well be part of the estate document. So it's worthwhile
I see.
considering looking there. So there
I
are
see.
other options for that.
Yeah, yeah. That's fascinating, and I don't know the answer here in the US, but I do hope that some of you with some serious genealogy chops will join us for for Emma's talk, and we can share some of those tips and techniques because this is such a fascinating area. And as you say, the will itself creates lends this color to the experience of this person's life. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're after. That's where all those stories are. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us and for you, Emma, to share this lovely sunny afternoon with us. We are experimenting a little bit with times that make it work. Our 2 p.m. California time on Sunday never seems to work for good reason in the middle of the night for all of you in Britain. So I am cooking up some new solutions as ways to make that work, especially ahead of a crazy season this year of time zone changes. I'm not sure if it's especially crazy this year or I'm finally paying attention to it to watch how we have a 6 week period where we are out of sync in international time zone uh, season changes. So it's a good time to be mixing it all up so that we're all thoroughly confused because, by golly, that's what I'm after.
As I say, organising meetings across time zones at the end of November or end of October in England, it's like it's a big headache, and you have to try and
It's,
remember
never
who's
mind
changed
whether.
and what's happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I'm out to yeah, we got computers, we can fix this. So we'll see what we can do. If numbers are involved, we have some hope for fixing that. Emotions, entirely separate thing. Alrighty then. So I will look forward to seeing all of you again next week, Thursday. Enjoy your weekend. I will also look forward to a special Sunday program coming up. And we shall see where that goes. Look at this. I have to look at my calendar to tell you what's coming on Sunday because it's still only not even 8 or just 8:30 in the morning here. Yes, because on Sunday, the 17th, Jane Chapman will join me for the first in our Stories 250 series. Okay, I get to do a little plug about this. Stories 250 is my effort to look at the challenges of family, looking back at our family history during the period of the American Revolution, which is such a big deal to us here for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which is, we did a thing and it changed and it created a country. And that thing was the 4th of July, 1776. And the 250th anniversary of that is coming up next year. There's a lot of politics going on right now, and I want to stay out of all of that. But if you think about it, really, the entire planet was going through a lot of stuff in 1776, and all of us had family there at the time. So let's talk about that. And the cool thing about these stories 250 is you can tell that story and tell me that you told that story, and I'm here to celebrate it because I'm here to celebrate. So that's what I am putting into the Stories 250. And I have another little trick coming up I'll talk about on Saturday to help get the word out about your stories about what was happening with your family in 1776 or 50 years before or 50 years after, basically within the lifetime of the people who were around at that period of time. Because I have a feeling this is going to tell a very interesting story for all of us as a collective. And so stay tuned for that. That's Saturday. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Take care. See you Thursday.
Bye. See you on
Bye.
Thursday. Bye.
Bye bye.